Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swirsky's Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swirsky Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have a rough Chicago sports weekend with Cubs and Bears losing, tough ones. But first, as always, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today. While we are in the off season, the regular season is only 1 month away. So head on over to icehogs.com, pick up some tickets for the upcoming season, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, and more. Tell them Swirsky Sports sent you. All right, Alex. I'm judging by the outcomes of games and your tweets that you were not going to be a happy camper on this show.
No, not particularly. A lot of frustration. And, a lot of frustration in a situation that looked like it was going to bring back a lot of positives, and it still technically should, but the way things unfolded at the end, it kind of gets washed away because, well, we'll get into that. But, yeah, it was a really rough sports weekend here in Chicago. Obviously, I'm not a White Sox fan, but the White Sox, they beat up on the Giants. Jose Abreu had a triple, but, unfortunately for them, it's not really important at this point because they're year one of a rebuild and they're, just kind of playing to play at this point. But for two teams that had big games and a big series, boy, did things not go well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, not to discount the White Sox is, like you said, it's kind of a moot point at this juncture because you sort of want to lose to enhance your draft pick. But it is nice every once in a while to reward your fans with some nice play, and they had a couple of runaway victories in the series against the Giants, so it's nice to see. And you're starting to see some of the future pieces being brought up and being able to play a little bit, and that's always nice. As Cubs fans that got to see that process, it was always really exciting to, once you knew you were in a rebuild, to see some of those future pieces start to play in the Major League roster. It was always a good feeling, even if they struggled, just to be able to feel like it's closer than you thought.
Right, exactly. And, it's one of those things where no matter what, if you're paying for a ticket, no matter how cheap it is, you want to see your team win regardless of the record. And obviously people who went this weekend were treated to some good wins and some entertainment. So you take that when you can.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, as White Sox fans, what did they, 8-1 today or something?
Yeah, something like that. And
then it was even worse yesterday. So it's nice for their fans to be able to see that.
Yeah. And there weren't, a lot of things on the line, obviously, but hey, you get your entertainment, you have a little hope for the future, and, you spent money, you saw something good, why not enjoy it? If there's no pressure on you, because obviously there's not, just enjoy it, and, if you win, you win, if you don't, you don't. There's really no pressure to it.
And, if you're a White Sox fan, you have to be able to revel in this a little bit, is that Carson Fulmer got the win today, and Madison Bumgarner got the loss.
Yeah, isn't that something? That's, win-loss record is something, but it was clearly, the Sox beat up on Bumgarner, and Carson Fulmer did some really good things. So, that really is something of note.
Yeah, Carson Fulmer had a rough first outing, but his record now is 2-1. He went 6 innings, only 3 hits, 1 earned run. 9 strikeouts. I would say that's a pretty darn good outing, even if it is against the Giants.
Yeah, you take that every time. If you're a young kid who's had his struggles in the big leagues and, something like that, regardless of the matchup and the team, that'll build a little confidence right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But on the other side of town, we got a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, quite different this weekend.
I mean, I know in the last episode we talked a little bit on the hopeful side of what we thought, being able to do against the Pittsburgh Pirates based on what they did against them like a week prior, and setting up the big matchup for themselves with the rival Milwaukee Brewers. And we talked about, even if the Cubs took 1 of 3, it's still only Milwaukee gains 1 game. Not a big deal. We're like, what are the odds that they're going to sweep them? And
3 total runs scored this weekend. 3.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that Milwaukee sent out their 3 best pitchers, but it's Milwaukee's 3 best pitchers.
Come on, man. I mean, in the first game, the game I was at, they had chances to score, and they had some pretty crappy at-bats and some scoring chances. And then, the rest of the way, they just couldn't do anything. And this is a team that was so good offensively in August, and especially at home, I thought, okay, being at home, they'll at least... I thought there was no way they were getting swept. I thought even if they lose 2 or 3, like you said, winning 1, they only gain 1 game, I didn't think they were going to get swept, but here we are.
Yep, here we are indeed. And honestly, I was like, I know this is going to be a troublesome series, but I'm like, just take 1 of 3, and you're still up 4 games. And
right.
Now what are they up 2?
Yep, and unfortunately, the Cardinals swept as well.
Yeah, so they've got 2 teams breathing down their necks.
And the Cardinals are known for doing this kind of thing. And when the Cardinals get hot in September, it seems like they just have everything going for them. And they right now are fielding a team, half their team is call-ups. More than half their team is call-ups. They just lost Dexter Fowler. They got rid of Mike Leake. It's all a bunch of call-ups, and they're dominating right now.
Yeah, it's infuriating. And then when you need the Dodgers to be able to win a few games, they can't do that either. They couldn't beat the Brewers. Now they can't beat Colorado because, let's face it, is as a safety net, you want Colorado to start losing more games, because if somebody catches the Cubs, you want to be able to at least get that wild card spot.
Yeah, and, right now, from the looks of it, because it looks like Colorado is starting to pick up the slack again. So, they're winning a lot again. So, it really does feel like right now that the Cubs have to win the division if they want to see the postseason.
Right now, the Cubs are in a tough spot. They've got 19 games left, and their magic number is 18.
Right. And that number could have gone down a lot this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it didn't. It didn't shrink once.
Yep. And all that shrunk was the number of games they have left to do it.
Yeah, this upcoming Cardinals series is going to be even more stressful. Because could you imagine if we lose to the Cardinals and the back flack will hear for that?
Oh, I know. Honestly, it's even more important than that is this Mets series that's coming up.
I think they have to sweep them.
Bare minimum they have to take 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Bare minimum.
Yeah, bare minimum.
Because you've got the Brewers and you've got the Cardinals, and they're hot on your trail. You really can't afford to lose games.
And the thing is, the Cardinals and the Brewers, they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. They don't have any pressure on them.
the Cardinals just came out of the blue, and they're, nobody expected this, and the Brewers are a year away still. So these are teams that you should have just put away a long time ago.
Right. Now, I want to make this clear to everyone listening before everyone calls me a meatball or a doubter or a bandwagoner that I am in no way saying the Cubs are not going to win the division, because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the concern level is a bit higher and that this isn't going to be a cakewalk by any means. Do I think the Cubs have the highest chance of winning this division? Yes, on paper they are the best team of the three. But with the way things have gone this weekend and this season, nothing is a 100% guarantee, and this is not going to be easy. That is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, it is absolutely a knockdown, drag-out street brawl at this point. And the Cubs, luckily Wilson Contreras got activated today, so he'll probably be playing against the Mets. So that's at least somewhat helpful. Addison Russell, who knows when you're going to get him back?
Right.
Jake Arrieta is still out, and I know they're, what are they saying now? 1 to 2 starts he'll miss.
Yeah, at the most.
So it's, the Cubs are a little banged up, and they've got, they've got a lot of games left against the Cardinals and the Brewers.
And also, there's a lot of people talking about, what's going on, how do they get swept so bad? And I think there's a combination of things, but some people brought up some interesting points where they really haven't had much off time. So you remember with the '06 White Sox when they had a terrible September after they won the World Series, and they just kind of talked about how they were gassed? Part of me can't help but wonder if they're starting to feel some kind of fatigue here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be something. Nobody's playing the way they should be. Kyle Hendricks looks okay, but he's not getting any run support, which
is unfortunate for him. And
he's giving up home runs. So when he does get hits, he's giving up a couple home runs here and there, and the Cubs just aren't scoring runs. Arrieta's hurt. Lester hasn't looked like himself in a while. Montgomery got just manhandled yesterday. Lackey looked really good, but doesn't get any run support. So it's in Quintana, you don't know which Quintana you're going to get. So and with the hitting, it's just non-existent. It's either feast or famine, because this is a home run or bust team, which does not bode well in the playoffs.
And there was also a lot of bad at-bats this weekend, and it feels like when the Cubs fall behind, they struggle to come from... they've had come from behind wins, I'm not saying that, but it seems like in a lot of these games, when they get behind early, they struggle to kind of get their way back. And, like I said, only 3 runs this weekend, which is a real head-scratcher. And what I'm hoping is that the way this Cubs team has played this year, they've had some pretty good weeks, they've had some pretty bad weeks, so I gotta hope that this coming week we're gonna see more consistent hitting like we saw 2 weeks ago. We're gonna see some of the good pitching that we saw after the All-Star break, and they gotta beat who they gotta beat. It's that simple.
That's absolutely right. It's put up or shut up. You won the World Series. You see the Indians struggled at the beginning of the season just as well as you did. But you see what they're doing right now.
They're on the verge of like a 17-game win streak.
Yeah, they're just dominating right now. They're absolutely dominating. And anybody that might have to play them in the playoffs has got to be looking at them going, how do we beat this team?
Well, I just did a piece on them, and their pitching is phenomenal. That's not going to be easy.
Yeah, Astros have a very nice team, but do they have the horses to hang with the Indians?
Yeah.
Minnesota has quietly had a really nice year, but they're so far back from Cleveland, it's not even funny.
Right, exactly. And, Cleveland's kind of quietly taken off. I mean, people are just kind of noticing this win streak now, but the way they've played lately has been phenomenal, and it hasn't really gotten a lot of the attention that people, would give to other teams if they were in that same position. Because right now, I mean, they're playing lights out in every aspect of the ball, with pitching, with hitting. They're dominating every aspect.
Yeah. So, but with the Cubs, what you're seeing is inconsistency. You're seeing just absolute mental mistakes. Guys, I mean, last year their calling card was getting guys on base. I haven't looked up the team batting stats from last year to this year, but I would guess that they're not that much lower, the batting averages. But I would assume that the on-base percentage is significantly lower, and then walk totals have to be lower. They're just not getting on base like they were last year, and that was just their hallmark. Is the bad? They didn't have a lot of guys hitting high averages, but they just had guys on base.
Well, they did it consistently. There's not a lot of consistency here, where sometimes the Cubs pile up 10, 15 hits a game, but it's very inconsistent. Still go dry stretches where they don't get anyone on base, but last year you had the consistency of it all.
Yeah, so it's just been extraordinarily inconsistent, and guys that last year, even when they weren't hitting, saw the ball well, not necessarily doing so again this year. It's a little frustrating. The pitching hasn't been as good as last year, but I mean that's not saying much, because last year you saw absolutely phenomenal pitching from start.
You were never going to see that level again. It's just not possible.
It was just unbelievable. But the pitching hasn't been bad this year, the starting pitching. And bullpen has gone ebb and flow between really good and disgustingly bad. So, I mean, something's got to give. If you are the Cubs and you want to make the playoffs, like you said, is you've got to get on base. You've got to drive in runs other than by home run. And the pitching has to be better.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, when you look at the bullpen, if you look at that as a unit, my main theory is that they were so overworked in the first half because the starting pitching really struggled, that they're feeling the arm fatigue, and kind of it's catching up to them, because that was kind of what I was worried about in the first half. I said, this bullpen is bailing us out time after time. I feel like as the season goes on, they're just going to kind of tire out, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. The Cubs are one of the worst bullpens in terms of walk rate, and that's not good.
Yeah, I'm looking at the right now. I'm looking at the odds of making the playoffs, and this is based on computer simulations of games, and the Cubs right now are at 80% to make the playoffs, not including today. And I'm assuming that's probably going to drop them. Probably.
Is this Fangraphs?
I'm on Baseball Prospectus, but
Okay.
they both do it. MLB does it as well,
Right.
I believe. But they're all about the same. As the Cubs 80% not including today. And I expect that to probably drop like 9%. So we're probably in the like 71% after today. But which is still nice, but
It was in the 90s a few days ago.
yeah, over the past week it's dropped 17 points.
And it just goes to show that, a lot can change in a few days. A lot can change. We saw how quickly the Cubs came back from a 5.5 game deficit after the All-Star break. Things change really, really fast. And, it goes to show how tight a division race really can be, because the last time the Cubs were in a really tight race really was like, 2007?
I mean, no, 2015, that was a tight race.
Yeah, but that was for a spot, or for a positioning, because remember, they had the playoffs clinched by a lot.
Yeah,
Like, they were up
guess
on
you're
San
right.
Francisco in the wild card by a lot. So yeah, they were trying to get the first wild card. Yeah, they were even trying to get the division, but they had a playoff spot clinched well beforehand.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've actually had a real fight to get a playoff berth. Is 2007 the year that they made the wild card? They had the one game. That was longer than that. God,
That was
I remember.
98.
Yeah. When you're old, dates just sort of float around. But I mean, I'd have to look it up. But they have not in a long time had to really fight down to the wire.
I think
It's either-
03 was really the last time.
Yeah, it's either been run away or just not be close.
Right, and especially since we're in this situation now where the expectations to win the division are extremely high, that you feel as a fan a lot of pressure from it.
Absolutely. I mean, last year, I remember Anthony Rizzo talking about when, I think it was in the Dodger series, when they came back to Wrigley and that he could just feel the tension from the Cubs fans. And that's because this is what we're used to. We're used to when something could either break really good or really bad, it usually breaks really bad. And we're just eternally pessimistic, even after having a World Series in our pocket.
Right. Yeah. Because, I've always said that last year would erase all the black cats and Bartmans and goats, but, there's always that little bit inside of me that kind of fears the worst, and that's not just for the Cubs. There's always that little pessimistic side to me for every team I root for, whether it's the Hawks or the Bears or the Cubs or whatever. So, sometimes you fear the worst because the worst can be really bad, and imagining the Cardinals winning the division and having to hear about not being division winners and people everywhere calling you a fluke even though it's not real, like, that's just something we really don't want, and we're kind of pessimistically afraid of that kind of happening. At least some of us are.
I think most of us are. I know I'm sitting here just like, I know nothing that happens this year can take away last year, or the feeling that I had.
Oh, not at all.
And it's, the worry I have is not anywhere near the same as it was prior to last year. It's not like, oh, we're cursed. It's because this curse is, you're absolutely right, spans all my teams. I can't ever feel that. I just can't feel that confidence. Like, we're gonna go in and win this, no big deal. Even when we're playing bad teams, it's just like, oh man, we might win, but somebody's gonna get hurt, or it's gonna be one of these series that both teams are gonna be up for because it's gonna have playoff implications, and then you lose 15-2. Like,
Right.
It's just that lack of confidence, and I think that's a total Chicago sports fan mentality.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, you see it on Twitter, you see it in the papers, you see it in the media. Negativity and pessimism is part of just the Chicago sports culture, because this city, though it has many championships, has had some of the worst heartbreak as well. So, it's kind of engraved in us, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of us Cubs fans have gotten greedy because of the World Series. We know how good this team is. We know how young this team is. And we know they already have a World Series and multiple playoff runs under their belt. And we just want more. We don't want it to stop. We want to rub in other people's faces that we're here to stay. And we don't want to lose that.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about this total Chicago pessimism when we start talking about the Bears, because if it exists with the Cubs at one level, it's like 50 levels higher for Bears.
Yeah, that's where it's come to.
I mean, I remember as a kid, as a little kid, many moons before you were born, was the last time I just felt like, as a Chicago sports fan, that we couldn't lose. And that was with the 85 Bears.
Yeah, I don't think there were people around the country that really thought the Bears would lose that year, at least according to what I've heard, even though I wasn't alive for it.
I mean, it was that team, like, they were good, and they had so much confidence that it made you just have confidence, because they were like, we're not going to lose. We don't lose. And you're just like, well, they're not going to lose. And they just, they were so dominant. It just made it, you just didn't feel like they could lose. And the Blackhawks, you started to get that. I mean, you've got that a little bit as far, for several years. It was like, all right, well, this is a really good team, and I feel comfortable night in, night out that they'll win. But when it came to the playoffs, you're still sitting on the edge of your seat, biting your nails.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the few times where I kind of shrugged off and said, we ain't going to lose, there were a few times where I said that, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I thought for sure, the Blackhawks were going to win that Game 7 against LA. I was sure of it. Even going to overtime, I thought there's no way we lose. And they lost. So that kind of made me feel like, well, if I go show that pretty sure, they seem to lose, so I guess always be prepared for the opposite. So
yeah,
it's kind of an interesting thought there.
I mean, I remember that game. I was cautiously optimistic. Like, I was like, I think they're going to win, but I'm still a little nervous, but I think they're going to win. And when they lost, I was just I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was stunned. It was,
yeah.
I probably sat on my couch for 20 minutes before it really sank in that it was over.
I kept denying. I was like in denial. I said, no, our season they can't end like this. This run can't end like this. No. And, I was with some friends watching it, and we were the same way. We were just kind of stunned, and we ended up putting a South Park DVD, watching it, laughing at, kind of forgetting. But then as that summer went on, I got more and more upset by it. That was the funny thing.
Yeah, it was just really odd, because I sat there and I normally I'm just either upset or I'm just miserable. I just sat there staring at the TV, and I just couldn't process it right then, because it was late, and I'm just sitting there in just stunned silence.
Yeah, we weren't prepared for it mentally. We were prepared to win. And, the thing with Game 7 last year with the Cubs, we'll go back to the Cubs because that's what we're talking about as a better example. In Game 7, we were all cautiously optimistic. We knew what the Cubs' past was like, but a lot of us were telling ourselves, this team is better than any of those other teams. This team is different. These circumstances are different. And when they were up in the mid-innings, there was that cautious, optimistic feeling that they were going to do it. But then when Rajai Davis tied the game, everything was sucked out of you. And then when the Cubs took the lead back, the optimism came back, and it was just like a play with your emotions. So, it's an emotional roller coaster in these kind of situations, and it's something that I think mentally our minds don't want to get rid of, because as humans, we don't absolutely think straight. So even though that now the Cubs have broken this curse, and even though that they've, won a World Series, our brains tell us we want more, and our brains tell us that if we don't get more, that's going to be really bad, and that's what makes some of the pessimism.
Absolutely. And we, I mean, right now, at least as far as I'm concerned, is watching this Cubs team, even though everything points to they don't deserve to make the playoffs, I'm going to be devastated if they don't. And this is a team that's built to contend perennially for years to come.
You know what my interesting thought is, and I think other people do feel the same way about the Cubs this year, as long as they get to the postseason, that's kind of satisfying enough, because obviously I want to win another World Series. That is what I want more than anything. But if they make the postseason and they just get flat out beat, I won't be as upset as if they don't make the postseason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you mean. Because it's also because everything that happens in the regular season is wiped out. It doesn't matter. It's all about, it's starting fresh. Everybody starts at the same level, and it's a sprint. So even if they lose, it's like, well, we got there and we had the same shot as everybody else and just didn't do it. But if you don't make the playoffs, that's a marathon, and that's an indictment of your team for the long haul. But whereas if you don't do it in the playoffs, it's not an indictment of your team. It's just who caught fire at the right time.
Right, and it feels like you obviously know this team is not going to win a World Series every year, no matter how good they are. But you know that this team was built to sustain contention over the years, consistently year after year. And, I mean, unless something really drastic happens, it looks like they'll at least sustain contention, because they are still in first place. But it wouldn't feel great to not make the playoffs. It would be a very, very yucky feeling. And I feel like, let's say the Cubs win the division and they meet the Nationals beat them, or maybe they make the NLCS and they just, they flat out lose, whatever. Then you can kind of watch the rest of the playoffs, not with such an icky feeling, where I feels like if the Cubs don't make the postseason, I'll feel kind of about watching the playoffs. I'll watch either way because I love baseball, but there'll always be that kind of feeling of, man, we should have been there.
I just had a thought right now, and I was looking something up while you were talking, and not to derail your point, but there's a real possibility the Nationals could overtake the Dodgers and take that first place in the National League.
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, the Dodgers lost again today.
And the Nationals won. Nationals are 4 games behind the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I mean, I doubt the Dodgers are not going to not win the division, but look at the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks look fantastic right now.
They're the team that was supposed to be playing last year, and they're finally showing up a year later. But I mean, man, they're killing opponents, and they're pitching well, they're defending well, they're hitting well, and frankly, right now they might be one of the last teams I'd want to see in the postseason in this race if we got there.
Oh yeah, I would not want to see the Diamondbacks. I at least feel with the Dodgers that they're slumping. The Nationals, although very good, they are notorious chokers.
Dusty.
Dusty, we trusty.
I mean, frankly, I mean, this could totally backfire on me, but right now, I'm really not that afraid of Washington in a potential matchup. I'm not.
The Marlins were officially eliminated today.
Were they really?
Yeah.
They made a nice push at the end, but it was way too late, unfortunately.
They were eliminated from the division. Sorry, they still have a possibility.
I was gonna say that was surprising. Okay,
but they're not too far from getting eliminated there too. But yeah, they were eliminated from the division. So yeah, but wow, Arizona's still 9 games behind the Cardinals. Behind the Dodgers. They won't catch them.
No, they won't.
And the Dodgers are on a 10-game losing streak.
That goes to show how, crazy that Dodgers run was for a while. And you knew they weren't going to play 700 baseball throughout the entire regular season, I should say. But man, I didn't expect them to go to a losing streak like this.
No, I just figured they had too many horses to go on more than a 3-game losing streak.
Right, yeah, I thought they'd lose 4 of 7 or 5 of 8, something like that, but I didn't expect this. And the thing is,
absolutely.
the teams beating them are all teams fighting for certain postseason positions. The Brewers, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies. Those are all significant wins for those teams.
Yeah, and so it's teams that they could and might be even playing in the postseason, and they're losing. They're absolutely losing.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to really... I still think the Dodgers have a really good chance of winning, or, at least getting there, because I think the team is really good. But I think it does show that they are indeed mortal. I mean, there was a while where people were like, oh, there's no way anyone can beat the Dodgers. And, it shows that any team can be beat.
Oh, yeah, any team can be beat, and this is absolute proof. But, I mean, there's no way they don't make the playoffs. They've pretty much got that locked. But what they do after that, it does, winning 100 games doesn't mean anything if you lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. The Dodgers, they with that 500 to 700 stretch, because remember, they started around 500, and then they got to like 700 before this month started. So that stretch of time between the 500 and by the time they were 700, they played unreal baseball, and that pretty much signed away their expectations for the year, saying this is World Series or bust.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at this really quickly I just clicked off of it. There's a team, a Cardinals team that finished the regular season at 83-78 and won the World Series.
Yeah, because they were doing pretty well for a while, and then they pretty much fell apart in August and September and only got in with those 83 wins. And that's one thing that kind of goes to show. They were talking about it on MLB Network the other day, where you could say going in hot into the postseason or going in cold means something, but if you actually look at that, it doesn't really always mean that. And the Cardinals team and the White Sox team that went into the postseason pretty cold and won it all is kind of evidence of that.
Yeah, it was the 2006 Cardinals.
Right.
83-78. And then the 45 Detroit Tigers had a terrible record. There's the 87 or the 2001 Diamondbacks, 85 Royals, the 2000 Yankees. All these teams didn't have good records, and they went on to win the World Series. So, like I said, it's the baseball postseason is the weirdest postseason because it's a marathon for the season, and then it's a sprint in the postseason.
And it's one of those stretches of time where the game is played so differently compared to regular season, with the way bullpens are now managed, with the way starters are now managed, with the way matchups are played. Things are so different in baseball regular season compared to postseason, compared to other sports. Football playoffs, you have your guys out there, you go out and play. The same can't be said for baseball. There's a lot more managerial strategy to it, and that's what I think makes baseball postseason so interesting.
Yeah, even the way that they set up the days off and the days on, there's the benefit that you get from winning the division versus being a wild card team is so minimal.
Right.
Okay, you had to play one game extra, and you have to shift the way your rotation goes. Not that big of a deal, unless you're a team that has just one awesome pitcher and everybody else is terrible. You've still got a good chance of winning a division or winning the division series.
Yeah, it's funny how the one game playoff that's been a guaranteed add to the wild cards, it really kind of changes a lot, because it was just a few years ago when there was only one wild card and you just went right to the division series. But this wild card game, this one game playoff, has changed a lot of that. And obviously in football, there's always the bye week for the top teams, but it's not like that affects like a rotation of players or anything, whereas in baseball, you have your best guy going in a one-game playoff, and then you go to your next guy to start game one against their best guy in the division series.
Yeah, so, I mean, as of right now, we've got a little over 2 weeks left of baseball. And I guess 3 weeks left of baseball. And I've got my fingers crossed that the Cubs can pull this out. And that the Cardinals don't make the playoffs at all. But it's going to be a tough road, and they're going to have to play better in all three phases. And they're going to have to play better defense. They're going to have to get some timely hitting, get some guys on base, and win games without home runs. And the starting pitching is gotta be there every day.
Yep, you got to take care of the series against the Mets, absolutely, no doubt. You got to go into the Cardinals series, at least winning a few of those games. And, who knows? Over the next 2 weeks, they could pull away again. Who knows? But I just thought going into Friday, looking where the Cubs were Thursday, 5 up on Milwaukee, 5 up on St. Louis, I really thought we were getting close to this race being over. I really did. And I thought that at this time right now, that we'd be talking about, how it's coming to an end. But, right now, that's not the case, and there's a long way to go still.
Yeah. But I think let's switch gears a little bit. And let's talk about this first game of the Bears season. Alrighty. So, switching over to the Chicago Bears. New season, new hopes. Anybody can win any given Sunday in the NFL. And I think there was a lot of people that really were just hoping that the Bears wouldn't get blown out. And it came down to the last play of the game. The Bears nearly won.
And you know what? Throughout most of this game, I was so happy seeing how the Bears were playing in many situations, especially the front seven of the defense. The way they were neutralizing a lot of the great offense of the Falcons. I have immediately officially fallen in love with Tariq Cohen. I think he's going to be a fun asset to watch over the next few years. Watching Akeem Hicks after he signed that contract with some of his great play was fun to watch. And I think that realistically with this Bears team, where they are and what the expectations are, that we have to look at the positives that come away from this game. But they had that game won. They make one catch on several tries, and they win that game. And they dropped those throws that were right to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk right about the ending then. And the last drive, they got all the way down to, I don't remember what yard line they were on, but they were in the red zone, and the first one was a pass to Josh Bellamy, and it went off his fingertips. And to Josh Bellamy's credit is that should have been a pass interference because the cornerback grabbed Jersey and pulled him back. And I honestly feel that, I understand why they don't throw because it was just a little bit, but look at how close that was to being a catch. And that little bit was a big impact. And then there was the one that Jordan Howard didn't catch, and I'm okay with that one because I don't know if he gets in the end zone, and you might run out of time on that one with the play. It's you might lose on that if he doesn't get in the end zone, because there was a guy right there ready to clobber him.
Right.
And then was it Miller that was the third one?
The one that bothered me the most, whether it was second or third, was the Jordan Howard one.
I mean, he had that.
He had it.
But the thing is he would have had to take that, and he would have had to either step out of bounds immediately or plow his way into the end zone.
Well, it seemed like the way he was going to go, it seemed like he was going to make it, at least to me. I'd have to watch the replay again, but it looked like to me that if he catches that, that likely is a touchdown.
Honestly, is when I saw back go out on the play, I was like, if that's Tariq Cohen, this game's in the bag, because Glennon's gonna throw it to him,
right?
And I saw it was Jordan Howard, and I was like, oh, please catch it, please catch it, please catch it. And then he looks up, and I was like, no. It was bad.
And then on fourth down, Bobby Massey got owned.
Bobby Massey and Jared Leno, or Charles Leno, and Bobby Massey got owned on pass protection most of the day.
Yeah, they did.
On run block, both of them looked pretty darn good, but pass protection, and I think that's been something we've all said is...
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Is that these two guys really struggle in pass protection. And when Bobby Massey was signed, that was the knock, is the guy was a mauler, but he's not a very good pass blocker. And that's exactly what we saw. And Mike Glennon has no sense of the pass rush coming.
No. He was a statue out there.
Yeah, I mean, even when he had a little bit of movement, is he just doesn't recognize when the pressure's coming, and he holds on the ball too long. He needs to. I mean, I made some notes from this game. Is Glennon, and I highlighted it. Glennon needs to learn to throw the ball away, and on that last play, is he absolutely held that ball too long.
Yep.
Is you've got to take that ball and make the throw into the end zone. You got to go to the end zone. You had 3 downs to make something happen underneath. This one had to go into the end zone, and you had to make it fast because you knew they were going to bring the pressure. They're not going to sit back and play a coverage defense. They're going to bring pressure. You knew it.
Yeah, exactly. And when he was sacked on that last play, boy, I stomped my foot down and said some things I can't repeat here on radio. But, just a lot of people bring up the one thing that I'm sure you and I are going to talk about. And people say, oh, well, if Mitch Trubisky is in, and I do agree, yes, they could have probably moved the offense better throughout the game if they had Mitch Trubisky, but the fact of the matter is, the people that Glennon threw to in those last few plays and the line didn't give him the protection that the team failed as a unit. It wasn't just all on Glennon.
Yeah, I mean, that's another point is we already knew that going into this season, before the preseason games started, that this wide receiver core would be okay, barring any major injuries. And there was just no room for injury in this wide receiver core. And then we have Cam Meredith tearing his ACL. He's out for the whole season from the preseason, so he's just done. So we're like, all right, this is not going to be a good wide receiving core. You lose your number one receiver. And then in his 5th game of his career, Kevin White breaks his collarbone. He's done for the season. Not sure if you saw that yet.
Is that confirmed? Because some people said they were questioning if it was a shoulder blade issue or the collarbone. Has it been confirmed that it's any one of those? Because I did write about that after the game, but it was still up in the air at the time.
ESPN reported it, and another source reported it as well. But I don't think the team has not confirmed. But
Either way, it sounds like Kevin White's done.
Yeah, and it's not like it's Jason LaConfora where it's 50-50 whether it's true. These are pretty reputable sources, so I think it's safe to say that Kevin White is done for the season. And we had 4 wide receivers dressed for this game. And Marcus Wheaton, who was our number 3 receiver, he didn't play. He was inactive because he still has dealing with that broken finger. So who knows who's going to dress next week for the Bears?
You think they bring up Gentry back from the practice squad? I mean, they got to fill in something.
They got to do something. I mean, they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to line up. I have a feeling that they're going to start lining up Tariq Cohen at times at wide receiver. They're gonna have to line up Zach Miller at wide receiver and put in and maybe do a 3 tight end set with Zach Miller, Adam Shaheen, and Deion Sims.
Yeah, because Deion Sims got some action in today, and I don't know what else you can do besides call up some guys from the practice squad, or you go out and try to sign someone, but it's not going to be anything big regardless.
Yeah, I mean there's just nobody on the street that's worthwhile. I mean, I heard a little bit of rumblings about, well, if we had Alshon, but if you look, Alshon Jeffrey, he caught the 2-point conversion at the end of the game, but I think he had 1 catch for 14 yards in today's game.
Yeah, I saw something like that. Yeah.
So it's not like he's tearing it up. We just needed Kevin White to stay healthy. And the frustrating part for me is a lot of people are using this to take shots at Ryan Pace. And I know the Bears in recent history have had, they've drafted guys with injury concerns. And,
right.
But this is a different situation. Bones, there's no way you can be like, well, he's got a history of bone issues, because bones, if you have knee issues, all right, well, that's something that can happen again, because his tendons and ligaments, soft tissue things, those are where the red flags are. But like, you can't be like, well, he's got a history of broken legs and that's a red flag. It's bones break or they don't break. There's no red flag issues as far as bones. And who would have ever imagined that a guy would miss 3 straight seasons with broken bones?
Yeah, I know.
It's mind numbing. It's just the probability of that happen. I wonder if that's ever happened. I just honestly wonder if that's ever happened, where a player has missed 3 consecutive seasons from broken bones.
And the other thing you think about is that if Kevin White does indeed have season-ending surgery, it'll be his 3rd consecutive year of having season-ending surgery, not just like an injury, but also having to have surgery with it.
And as a first-round pick, later this year, during the season, the Bears are going to have to make the decision whether or not to pick up his 5th-year option. And I mean, can you possibly pick it up at this point?
I think it's coming to the point where you might just have to move on from him. There's clearly nothing is working right now. It's unfortunate to say, but I don't see any other way.
You can't count on the guy.
No.
Even if in preseason and training camp he looks like your best guy, you can't count on him to play 16 games. I've heard wiser men than myself in football say that the number one skill they look for is being available for the game. It doesn't matter if you have quarterbacking skills of Tom Brady, but if you get hurt every game, you're not useful.
Yeah. Yep, that's the truth of it.
So I made a lot of notes, and I don't know the best way to go about this. I guess we could talk a little bit about the offense first. Mike Glennon. What was your opinion on Mike Glennon today?
I certainly wasn't in awe. I thought there were some throws that were pretty bad. I thought playing under pressure was not good at all. I'll give him credit for the last drive of doing pretty well in the last drive. And, again, like I said, the last drive is not something I can really fully fault Glennon because his guys did drop those passes. All in all, I wasn't overly impressed, but it's not like he played like Scott Tolzien did for the Colts.
Tolzien got benched for a guy that just came in like a week ago.
Yeah, I know.
But I was underwhelmed. I mean, my bar wasn't that high for him, but I was underwhelmed. It's the, we in the preseason, the first game he came out and just looked bad. He had another game where he looked okay, and he had one in the end that he looked good. And I was hoping that we would get the good version because that would have given us the chance. I mean, we had the chance to win today, but I think that would have given us a much better chance to win today.
Right.
But for the most part how long into this game before he targeted wide receivers for throws? He was just
and throwing downfield too.
Everything was a dump off. It was like watching Brian Hoyer again. It was one thing about Jay Cutler is he was not afraid to throw it downfield, and we'd go crazy because he threw a lot of interceptions. But oh my God, I just even on that last drive, I tweeted out, I was like, are we gonna throw swing passes for 85 yards? Like this.
Right.
We've got to go downfield, and I know that we don't have the horses at wide receiver to be able to create separation, but he's got to be able to take some of these chances to go downfield.
Right, and that's what I said earlier in the game was if you don't have a quarterback that can throw downfield, then you can't expect to win.
I mean, that's my thing is, and I'm not being one of these meatballs that just like Glennon sucks, bring in Trubisky because Trubisky is. Right. I know we're gonna have growing pains with Mitch Trubisky being quarterback because there's a lot in the preseason. They set him up for success. They set him up to be in the best possible position, and in game situations, in real games, he's going to have to do some things that he's just not comfortable with yet because he's an inexperienced quarterback that played in a non-NFL style offense. So, but honestly, we saw what Glennon did. It was not great, and if nothing else, is Mitch Trubisky could have run on that last drive.
Oh yeah.
Is Mike Glennon he makes Tom Brady look mobile.
Yeah, I mean he's limited in what he can do. Like I said, unfortunately those last few throws were dropped and he made some pretty good throws, but you look throughout the game and you wondered if you had a quarterback that was confident in throwing downfield like somebody else would be, then you got to wonder if they'd have more points on the board with all that because they hung around while playing great defense, but it's like, man, this is a very winnable game right now with the way the defense is playing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The thing about Mitch Trubisky is like his number one quality of why they fell in love with him is his accuracy, and he throws to wide receivers in the perfect spot. Like that's what he does. We saw a deep ball that he threw to Tanner Gentry that was just absolutely amazing. And there's and that's where we see a difference with Mike Glennon. Is Mike Glennon a lot of throws that were a little low, a little high, a little behind, a little ahead. I think Mitch Trubisky would have had a better throw. With that being said, is when there was the errant snap by Cody Whitehair, and Mike Glennon picked it up and prevented a fumble recovery, and B, threw the ball away to prevent a sack, is I don't know what an inexperienced Mitch Trubisky would have done.
Right, that's the thing. It's like, obviously, Mitch Trubisky has the tools to be more mobile in the pocket and escape pressure better, and has the ability to throw accurate passes downfield. But, it would have been the first game against the Falcons team, a very good Falcons team. And though I'm confident I think Trubisky could have done some good things, the reality is we don't have a crystal ball telling us for sure, absolutely for sure, what would have happened. So it's really kind of hard to play that game. In reality, you got to play with the circumstances you had. And the circumstances you had is what you were doing with Glennon. When you analyze a game's outcome, that's just the only way I can put it.
Yeah. So I'm not going to be like just an absolute hater that's going to whine and complain, but I just felt like we didn't see nearly enough, and there was no urgency, and I think Mike Glennon played it so safe that if it wasn't for Tariq Cohen playing like he was Gale Sayers or Barry Sanders, I think it would have been a long day for the Bears if it wasn't.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tariq Cohen kept those drives alive so many times.
Let's see what else. Let's see my notes. I wrote Glennon had 2 good blocks, that's a plus for him.
Yes, he did. One of the touchdowns that Howard scored on the ground, he had a very nice block.
I mean, it wasn't even a great block. But he at least had the notion to block. And
for a quarterback going out there and stopping that kind of guy and letting him go, I consider that a job well done.
And I don't know what made me just think of this, but as far as position players that aren't necessarily known for blocking, or positions that are not known for blocking, is I loved watching Hines Ward block.
Oh, yeah.
Because that guy I think he took more pride in blocking than he did catching, and he would just decleat somebody.
Right. That was fun to watch as a football fan, and imagine if we had someone like that on the Bears, on either position, offensive or defensive. That'd be great. But yes, he was pretty awesome.
But Mike Glennon was far from a Hines Ward block, but it was effective enough that Jordan Howard was able to get in and score that touchdown.
Yeah, and good for him for doing that.
I wrote in the first half of the game we had no wide receiver presence. Kevin White looked bad.
That one drop, that big drop, right? Wasn't it on like a slot slant route? And it was
a slant route and hit him right in the hands, and he just dropped it.
Yep, flat out dropped it.
Poor pass blocking. Mike Glennon needs to throw the ball away. And then we get to a good one. Is Dontari Poe, when was it 2 seasons ago when he played against the Bears, Hronis Grasu was the center, and Dontari Poe just mauled him. Like, just absolutely treated him beated him like a rented mule. And the same guy comes back, and Cody Whitehair just really did well to block him. And I thought that was really fantastic to see.
Yeah, that was.
You just see what a good. I mean, there was a couple of ticky-tack calls on him as far as holding, but for the most part, is Cody Whitehair looked really good. And I was a little bit worried that they were going to make 2 moves to replace one spot with Kyle Long not in the lineup. So I was worried that they were going to take Cody Whitehair, move him to that guard spot, and then bring in somebody to play center. But they didn't. I thought that was the right move, is they brought in Tom Compton to play that guard spot, and he did okay. But Cody Whitehair, you're a better offense with him at center.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
What else do I have? Yeah, 4 wide receivers on game day roster. So we're gonna have to see interesting things because we just don't have the wide receivers, and there's just not a lot of guys out there.
So right now you're gonna have to rely on the Wrights, the Bellamy's, the Thompsons.
Yeah,
it's the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be shocked to see Tanner Gentry brought up to the active roster.
I mean, you might as well at this point.
Honestly, I don't see what harm it is. The guy pretty much caught everything that was thrown to him.
Yeah, knows the team, knows the system.
And he's, once Trubisky goes in there, he has a good rapport with him.
Yeah, exactly. So what else like I said, what else are you going to do? You need somebody. This guy showed some really good skills and everything he did right in the preseason. So with the same team, like you said, what harm can it do? I think that's what they should do, frankly.
Yeah, you're not going to get anybody better than Tanner Gentry off the street. And I don't think anybody's trading with you right now. So,
no.
What else do I have here? There was the third quarter, I think, was the pivotal one for me. Is you saw the play calling on offense shift a bit, and they started trying to go with a power run. And I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to run time off the clock, and they were trying to really beat down the defensive line for the Falcons by just shoving Jordan Howard down their throat, and it wasn't nearly as effective as having the more shifty guy in Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought what was really interesting about the running game was early on, speaking of which, we saw a lot of them doing the running on the outside. They were doing much better on the outside than going up the middle. And, obviously what's important is to see how teams adjust to you doing that, because if you're going to keep going with Mike Glennon and you question his ability clearly to throw downfield, then you're going to have to use the run game a lot, and you're going to have to know its strengths and weaknesses and what was effective and what other adjustments you have to make.
Yeah, and in that shift, we saw a lot less Tariq Cohen in the third quarter. And this is not me going, Tariq Cohen definitely better than Jordan Howard. Is we saw what Jordan Howard can do, but this, the way that, the defense for the Falcons is a pretty good defense, and they were doing very well against the traditional style running back, like power running back. So they were really bottling up Jordan Howard. It was Tariq Cohen was able to outspeed them and beat them to the spots and be able to utilize how fast they were as a disadvantage. So it was just the change of pace. There's going to be teams where Tariq Cohen doesn't do anything and Jordan Howard is plowing through. You just got to play the hot hand.
Right.
My big knock on Dow Loggins today is a guy like Bill Belichick, when he sees something's working, he's going to keep doing it all day long until you show you can stop it. If he sees, 42 blast is he's picking up 7 yards a carry, he's going to run it for the rest of the game. He'll run it 27 times in a row if he gets 7 yards a carry till you learn to stop it. And I think Dow Loggins, was trying to outsmart himself a little bit, and he was trying to shift it up, expecting them to try to compensate for what was working in the first half, and they never really had an answer for it. So I think he just outthought himself on it.
Here's my question to you about the coaching. I found it odd, as did the TV announcers, that John Fox called the third and final timeout when he did. What did you think of that?
I wouldn't have done it myself. I didn't think it was that bad of. I didn't think it was a terrible move, but I would have just spiked it.
Right, because that's what they were saying. That's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were just going to go up and spike it.
But honestly, it came down to they needed all the downs anyway, so
right.
There was no harm, no foul. But in the first half, I thought John Fox, who's notorious for poor clock management at the end of halves and end of games, I think he did a good job of running down that clock and not giving a chance for the Falcons offense to come back out on the field.
Right, because the Bears scored, and then the Falcons only had 14 seconds, and they just took a knee.
Yeah, you didn't give them enough time to be able to do anything. But at the end, I just didn't. I don't know if he just didn't have the confidence in a Mike Glennon to come down there and successfully line everybody up and spike the ball in a timely fashion, which that could be very well be. Is you're going to see the same thing with the Mitch Trubisky. Is you sort of need a strong leading quarterback to get everybody down there, get them set, and spike the ball. It's not as easy as, just spike the ball, because if one of your guys is not moving or is moving, you get a false start penalty. You lose 5 yards there.
Right.
So it could be a thing where he just didn't feel confident that Glennon would come down there in a timely fashion and be able to do it. And he'd rather blow the play dead and have all, 30 seconds left from right there, rather than having 15 seconds left but a timeout.
Right.
So it's not what I would have done, but I can totally see the understanding of why he did it there.
It wasn't what cost the Bears the game. What cost the Bears the game was not catching it, but that timeout timing didn't end up doing any harm, really. I just thought at the time it was kind of strange.
Yeah, especially since if he was going to do it, he should have done it right off the bat. They waited till he kind of ran down there a little bit.
Right.
I don't know if he just got nervous that he wasn't going to do it right, or if he was, it could have been something where they were having difficulty getting play in or something. There could have been a lot of things. I'm not going to speculate there, but if Bill Belichick was not going to call that with Tom Brady on the field right there. That's all I'm saying. But you've got essentially almost a rookie quarterback out there. You might have to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Let's see. Bears defense. The pro is this team, this Falcons offense scored like 35 points a game last year. Bears held them to 23.
Yeah, what can you say? Their front seven looked really good. Akeem Hicks, other than that, what was it, the roughing the passer call? Other than that, he was really good. He got 2 sacks, right?
I think so. But he really ran out of gas at the end of that game.
Yeah, he did. Well, he had to work really hard in that game.
And he just, you just literally watched him hit the wall. And that's on the coaching staff for not identifying that he's really running on fumes and rotating out and putting either Bullard or Unrein or somebody else in there to take his spot, because, he were getting nothing out of him at that point.
And Bullard showed a worthy preseason to go in there from time to time. But yeah, like you said, Akeem Hicks was out there. They even said on TV that they could tell he was getting tired, because he really did work hard and he worked a lot.
Yeah, my biggest complaint about the Bears defense in that first half was, one is when they're getting these hits on the running back, and they're letting them run their momentum, carry them forward for 2 and 3 extra yards, and they need to bottle that up. Don't let that, stop that run at a 2-yard run instead of letting them fall forward for a 5-yard run. That was big in the first half, and they cleaned it up a lot in the second half. They were much better at not letting forward momentum or yards after the hit.
Yeah.
They need to finish sacks. They were better at that in the second half, but you got to be able to finish a sack when you've got them down. There's one really big one where they couldn't finish it, and that was on that 88-yard touchdown
I was
pass.
just going to bring that up. Yep.
But other than that that's something they got to work on. And then they put your hands up. We saw a nice knockdown on a 3rd down by Roy Robertson Harris. I know he's like 17 feet tall, but everybody needs to put their hands up. If you can't get to the quarterback, put your hands up. Anything underneath or in the middle, you've got a really good chance of knocking that down or deflecting it at some point. And even if you get your tips of your finger on it, your cornerback can then knock that receiver down, and it is not pass interference.
Right, exactly. And he did a good job on that play right there, knocking it down. Here's the one thing I wanted to talk about this Bears defense. We saw how good it could be with its front 7, keeping the pressure on, and they made some good tackles, even though some slipped away, but they did make some good tackles. To me, it still seems like this defense, though effective, it's not going to generate a whole lot of turnovers.
No, that was another one I was going to bring up, is not a single turnover. And that's a problem. And part of that is Leonard Floyd didn't get the pressure on that he needed to. You got a lot of pressure from Akeem Hicks and from the middle of your defense, but you need that outside pass rush to come in. And Pernell McPhee played a little bit in this game. You probably wouldn't have realized it because they never said his name.
No, they didn't.
And the only time you really heard Leonard Floyd is when he was dropping into pass coverage, because he's actually pretty good at it. But he didn't get a lot of pass rush on there.
No, he didn't.
Matt Ryan. So that's where you're going to get turnovers. The Bears ran a lot of zone defense, and when they did run man coverage, is honestly, Marcus Cooper did a pretty good job on Julio Jones.
Yeah, because Julio Jones had he had 2 big catches, and that was about it?
Yeah. Honestly, the Bears cornerbacks were okay. It's when they were getting eaten up as the zone defenses. And
right.
They were getting picked apart, and that's because Matt Ryan is any really good quarterback that's given time is going to eat up a zone defense. It's just how it is. And he was, for the most part, a lot of times Matt Ryan had time. And when you've got a wide receiver like Julio Jones, you've got number 2 like Mohamed Sanu, and you have time to throw to them in a zone, they're going to beat you. And even when you have a veteran like Quentin Demps, you see sometimes where that zone defense will break down. Look at the 88-yard touchdown. Austin Hooper looked amazing out there because he was left wide open. And when you watched, I'm making the assumption that should have been Demps because of the way Jarrell Freeman broke off his running with him at a certain point. I think Quentin Demps just got nervous that there was man coverage on Julio Jones going deep, and he cheated to that side and left Austin Hooper wide open. I'm assuming that's what happened. Sometimes when back there, you never know you're never going to know officially who's at fault there, but I'm almost positive that one was a Quentin Demps. And that's part of, you got to be able to trust the other guys. If Julio Jones, if he's not your responsibility is the tight end on that side, who's got no coverage, then you need to make sure you cover him. if Marcus Cooper gets beat by Julio Jones on a deep pass, and I don't think Matt Ryan's throwing that to Julio Jones because it was tight enough coverage. The way he was scrambling is he's not throwing it, up for a one-on-one like that, off balance.
Right.
But Austin Hooper was wide open. He just had to fling it. There was no way that was going to get intercepted.
Yeah, exactly. There was no contesting, no whatsoever. He was all alone out there.
Yeah, and then in the second half of the defense, you saw when you stop the run and don't give up those extra couple of yards after contact, is you force Atlanta into third downs, and that was something that they, if they had a struggle on offense, it was on third downs. Matt Ryan talked about that prior to the game, and the Bears were able to pin their ears back and create pressure in the pocket. So that was a positive. Is in the second half they did that a lot more. And one other thing I had noted about the defense is, partly this is a new unit playing together. Part of it is you've got some inexperience back there, but the Bears got caught a lot by natural picks, and the refs were not calling that. They rarely call that to begin with, but wide receivers are not allowed to set a pick like in basketball. But if you're running your route and you run into a defender, that's legal. And Atlanta was doing that quite a bit to the Bears, and that's how guys were getting open, by natural picks, by having crossing routes, and the Bears didn't do switches. The Bears they got caught up in it, and that hurt them a little bit.
Yeah, most definitely. You saw that throughout the game, and that's one thing that I think the Bears are going to look at and try to counter-adjust to that kind of thing.
Yeah, but luckily we only saw the one major injury with Kevin White, which was kind of an inevitable. I don't think any Bears fan felt that they were going to see 16 games of Kevin White.
Oh, I certainly didn't. I hate saying it, but I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't think I've met a Bears fan that expected 16 games out of Kevin White, and I hate saying it. I feel bad, but
the way things have gone, how could you?
Yeah. But key plays in this game, I think the two big ones were that long touchdown pass to Austin Hooper, and the Cohen 46-yard touchdown run, and the Cohen touchdown reception. I think those were the three big keys to this game.
Yes, they were, and it's still tough for me to swallow this one considering how close they were to winning it, but you got to take the positives of what you got and move forward with them, and I certainly hope that this defensive unit stays together for the most part, because boy, did I enjoy watching that front seven work today.
Yeah, I really did too. And I think, and I don't like being this guy, so I'm going to preface this a little bit, is I'm not saying this was cost the Bears the game, but I honestly felt the officiating was a little lopsided in Atlanta's favor.
That first down call was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was so ridiculous. And granted, odds are that the Falcons are going to make that first down anyway, especially the way they were running in the first half. But the thing is, when you have to have a run play for a short run, is fumbles happen, bad snaps happen, is you can't just hand them that play. And the fact that John Fox didn't challenge it just infuriated me, because there's no planet that was a first down.
Right,
so I'm
and
glad you brought that one up.
They would have won that challenge, no question.
Yeah. So did that cost the Bears the game? Absolutely not. But it was frustrating because the Falcons on offense don't need that extra help.
Right, exactly.
I thought this one might be a little bit of homerism, but I really didn't think that was a roughing the passer on Akeem Hicks. did he take him down? Yes. But if they would have happened the other way around and that would have happened to Mike Glennon, I think that was a superstar quarterback getting the special treatment.
I thought that was a little ridiculous too, but I could also understand why they call it. I think roughing the passer is very arbitrary at times, and sometimes it's kind of one of the things where it's like, okay, what is a catch, what isn't? But I definitely see what you mean, and I thought that it wasn't necessary to call that roughing the passer, but I do kind of see why they did call it. So that's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have even wrote that down, except at the end of the game when Vic Beasley was not penalized for leading with his head to hit Mike Glennon.
Right.
Now, if tackling him by dragging him down by his legs one step after he throws is roughing the passer, how is leading with your helmet to hit a quarterback, how is that not a roughing the passer? That's when I wrote it down, is because that's where I feel like it's superstar treatment, because Vic Beasley's a superstar, or he's coming to a superstar, and Matt Ryan is absolutely a superstar.
And so Mike Glennon isn't a superstar.
Yeah, Mike Glennon isn't far from a superstar. So it was, I felt that, so I jotted those down afterwards because I just thought that was inconsistent calling. If one is roughing the passer, then the other one absolutely is.
Yeah.
Then there was on that first touchdown of the Falcons, they missed a pass interference on a pick. That was an absolute pick that they didn't call that.
Wasn't there also a holding missed on Willie Young too?
There was also a hold that was missed on Willie Young, and that one was the more egregious one. There was definitely a hold there, and then on that last drive with Josh Bellamy, that was a hold or a pass interference in the end zone. Either way, that would have been a first down, new set of downs on the 1 yard line. And that becomes a much different game.
Yeah.
So it's did I think any of those were so egregious that it cost them the Bears the game? No, but it was a little frustrating because I think Jeff Triplett's a pretty good referee, and I felt there was a little bit of bias.
No, I know what you mean, definitely. There were definitely times when I saw a call and I said, really? Really? And like you said, it didn't make or change the game for the most part. Plus, again, I say this over and over, the Bears didn't catch the ball at the end. Nothing really would have mattered if they would have done that, but, unfortunately that didn't happen, and it's easy to look back at some of those calls, but, what can you do about that? I was really embarrassed by that first down call. I thought that was a complete joke.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really bad one. But you're right. Ultimately, it comes down to, and I know this is the most cliche thing, and I usually don't like cliches, but the football game comes down to 3 to 5 plays, and if you make them, you win. If you don't make them, you lose. And the Bears didn't make those plays. The long touchdown to Austin Hooper, that was a blown defenses. Had Quentin Demps been in position, that probably ends up being 4th down and they punt.
Yeah.
If Josh Bellamy makes that catch in the end zone, then they win. If Zach Miller makes that catch in the end zone, they win. Jordan Howard makes that catch at the 1 yard line, they probably have a pretty good chance of winning. It's those just a couple of plays they make, and that's the difference in the game.
Yep. And, unfortunately it didn't happen, but, you got to take away with the positives you can. That was originally the goal here. Now, I wouldn't have such a gut-wrenching feeling in my gut after that loss if, let's just say, on the last drive, they're at midfield and they just get flat-out stopped. Then you just kind of say, oh, well, wasn't meant to be, but losing it in that fashion really made me overlook the goods and just think about what could have been.
What makes me think of what could have been is, you know who the guy drafted the next pick after Kevin White was? Sorry. Vic Beasley.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He was the next guy picked. So the Bears could have easily had at one end Leonard Floyd, the other end Vic Beasley.
Yeah, well, I think the we could have had scenarios played a lot in Chicago sports history. Let's say that.
Yeah, so that when he went down, when he missed that pass, that's all I could think about is, man, that would be nice having Akeem Hicks in the middle and Beasley and Floyd on opposite sides. Oh, that'd be nice.
That would be amazing.
But I mean, we gotta look at this with somewhat of a positive slant. Is I don't think anybody really thought the Bears were going to win this game.
Most experts had the Bears getting blown out.
Yeah, I mean, I was just hoping there'd be no blowout. So it's funny how in mid-game I changed my attitude a lot because I was just, I was really upset when they lost. But going into it, I was just hoping they didn't get blown out and embarrassed. All I could think about was shades of Trestman era against Green Bay and Trestman era versus New England. Especially after they scored, they were, that first drive when they got the field goal instead of the touchdown. I thought they were going to score a touchdown. I was like, man, I hope they don't score 56 points this game.
Yeah, I hear you.
But so you've got to be able to take away some positives from this. Is the Bears' running game does look good. Is you didn't have any turnovers on offense. That's a good thing. That last drive, I think as Bears fans, if Cutler would have been here, we would all have assumed that he would have ended the game with an interception.
Yeah.
Is that fair that we would have guessed that?
Even though Cutler had many game-winning drives in his career, yes, absolutely.
And the Bears defense held a team whose offense is basically intact still. That's averaged 35 points a game last year and held them to 23 without getting a turnover. That you've got to feel positive about that. And looking forward to next week is you've got a Tampa team who a lot of experts have them as their dark horse to win that division. I don't think they're nearly as good as Atlanta, and I feel like the Bears are going to have a very good shot to win that game.
Yeah, I think that there's a better chance of them winning than people think. Obviously, I would still put Tampa as a favorite, but yeah, you're definitely right.
Yeah, I mean, I still have I'm not putting money on the Bears unless the spread is big, but this is you have to feel confident is that you were able to stop Matt Ryan in that offense. That Jameis Winston, not taking anything away from him, is not Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan is arguably the best quarterback in the league. If not one, he's in conversation with one of the three. And Jameis Winston is not Matt Ryan. Maybe he will be one day, but he's not Matt Ryan.
Right.
And some of the wide receivers, they've got some good wide receivers in Tampa, but none of them are Julio Jones. And and they don't have, I don't think they have as good of a running game as Atlanta. So it bodes better for the Bears defense in that regard.
Definitely, no doubt.
It's just if they play the game next week, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they'd move it to a neutral site if that were the case?
I mean, they can't postpone another game for Tampa because they already postponed this week.
They posted them and the Dolphins.
Yeah, they either have to play it in Chicago or a neutral site.
Right.
I mean, who knows? Maybe Tampa didn't get hit that hard and everything's. But I mean, there's a decent possibility that they might just not have power for that game.
Right. There's going to be a lot of questions about that.
I mean, if they don't end up playing in Florida, probably somewhere in Texas.
Yeah. Imagine if they played
know.
at Jerry World. I don't know if they're gone, but I don't know. It's a good question. Or you think maybe they go to Atlanta if they're not playing at home, but they might be playing at home.
I'd have to look, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do because it's who knows what this hurricane damage is going to do. I mean, I saw some footage from where it's hitting Miami so far, and it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't.
So who knows what it's going to do to Tampa? I have a friend who lives in Tampa, and she evacuated already. So
yeah,
who knows what that hurricane's going to bring. So it's going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to be also for the Bears. They have no film to watch of Tampa.
That's true.
So that's a disadvantage. But it's going to be interesting next week, definitely, because it's an interesting matchup, and it's going to be interesting to see where they play the game because the NFL is going to have to make that decision soon because you have to imagine the Bears are going to head out, several days before the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Only time will tell right now.
And two last things. One is there was almost 5,000 unused tickets for today's game.
I saw that. Yeah.
That's bad for the Bears. That's bad. Opening day of the NFL season, you open it at home and 5,000 unused tickets.
Yeah, I mean, it would be more sensible to say that would happen like later in the season if they were, obviously down and out like they have in the past few years. But man, on opening day, it just kind of goes to show how a lot of people are fed up with this. And, even though they're in a rebuilding process, they're not going to come back until they start seeing winning results.
I don't blame them. It's really expensive to go to a football game.
Especially a Bears game, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just for giggles, on Wednesday I was looking on StubHub, and the cheapest tickets you can get was $98.
Yep.
For one ticket.
Yep.
I'm like, it's just, and then you figure if you drive, you got to pay for parking. You're probably going to eat something, or have a beverage, and it adds up so quickly. And if you go with somebody that you're buying a ticket for, like a spouse or a child, or in my case, a spouse and a child, then suddenly you're looking at probably $400 you're spending.
Yeah, I mean, my dad and I did the same thing, and I did the same thing also with some friends, looking at different dates in Bears games, even preseason games. And it's like, I don't want to spend money for this. I mean, if the Bears were really good and maybe Mitch Trubisky was playing, it'd be a bit more tempting, but still, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I almost pulled the trigger because my wife was out of town for that fourth preseason game, and I almost pulled the trigger because there was $14 tickets on StubHub, and I was like, I'll take my kid to a game for $28. Awesome. And I didn't pull the trigger, and the next day the cheapest ones were like $27, and I was like, all right, that's at the point where I don't know how long she's staying, and I got to get her down there. And then I was like, let me think about it. And then I saw they were like $35, and I'm like, all right, now I'm just going to back out.
Yeah.
But we'll see later in the season if they're not looking good, how cheap tickets will go, especially when the weather. I mean, today was a beautiful day.
Oh, yeah.
When the weather starts not being nice, how low those tickets go.
Yeah, I mean, remember Christmas Eve last year? The place was half empty. The weather was terrible. I mean, it was really a gloomy sight.
Absolutely. But the one last thing I wanted to bring up was right before this game, it got announced that Akeem Hicks, which not unsurprising, I think a lot of people were expecting this, Akeem Hicks got a contract extension, 4 years, $48 million.
I say he's worth every penny.
I think so too. He's the anchor of your defense. I was worried that they were going to wait and this would fester all season, and at the end of the season you'd have an angry player who didn't have his extension, and if he leaves,
I'm so glad they
That's-
locked it down now.
Yeah, that's a problem, because if you have to replace him, and as well as keep rebuilding that secondary and try to add another pass rusher, that gets a little hairy. You got to keep the talent you have. So I'm glad they locked him up and utilized all that extra cap room that they have.
Yeah, exactly. They have so much cap room to use, so it went to a a very good cause, and like I said, I'm so glad it was done right before the season started. Not mid-season, not near the end of the season, right before the season started.
Yeah. So they have, as it stands right now, they've got $17 million in cap space.
Yeah, see?
So you use it up.
Use it for
up.
something that's going to be worthwhile. And Akeem Hicks, he's worthwhile.
Yep, absolutely. But unless you have anything else, I really don't have much else to talk about.
No, I think that pretty much sums everything up. Hopefully next Sunday the Bears can pull out a win somehow, and hopefully the Cubs turn things around, because it's coming down to crunch time, just a few weeks left. There's not much more room for error here.
Yeah, I hope that next week we have a much more positive show where the Cubs have created a little bit of separation between themselves and the Brewers and the Cardinals. We're talking Bears victory Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swirsky Sports Talk Chicago. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please hit us up on Twitter at ShyFanPat1, at Swirsky Sports, Facebook.com/Swirsky Sports, SwirskySports.com. Make sure you subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Denver New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on the plains.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.